Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to create a Windows Form app, using VB.net to actually open a database file that was created earlier. So the very first thing you need to do is, of course, creating a project. So I'm just going to press the shortcut key of Control-Shift-N. That'll bring up the new project dialog. So it's a Windows Forms app, so I'm going to choose that, give it a name, WinForm DB. So that's the project name we're going to call it. Alright, so I have an empty form right now. I'm just going to adjust the size to make it not so big so that it fits on this video. Alright, so what I want to do is to basically, well, first of all, of course, you make sure you name your forms properly as per the Microsoft naming convention. So recipe form, that's what I'm going to call mine. Alright, so what I want to do is to have a list box. Alright, so I'm going to have a list box here that will list out all the recipes names that I have in the database, in the table in the database. And then I'm going to have a button. I'm going to create a button here that says basically list all button. That's what I'm going to call it. Right, so, and the text on it, it will say list all recipes. Alright, make it a little bit bigger. Alright, and this list box, I'm going to call it recipe list box. Alright, okay, then I'm going to have a series of labels on the right hand side here so that when I click any recipes inside the list box, the details of each recipe will be updated. So I'm just going to put just a bunch of labels. So the first one is going to be my ID label. Next one is going to be my name label. Next one will be my category label. Category. Next one will be, adjust this a bit. That's going to be my energy label. And finally, my cooking time label. Cooking time label. Alright, so now I have all the labels. So I'm just going to keep this simple. Alright, so now I have my form. So what I need to be able to do is to, first of all, include the database into my project. So if you look at this right now, there's no database here. So I need to include that database in my project. So what you do is you right click on the project, you click add existing item, and you look for the location of where your database is at. So mine is located here. Just change the data type to data files. There, I should find it there. And click add. So what happens is it now adds it into my project. And if I were to view my Server Explorer, right, there it is. So I have this nutrition.mdf1. The reason it's put a 1 is because I already have a file that was created earlier in this folder, in this folder, right? So what is done here by adding the nutrition.mdf into the project, it actually copies the nutrition.mdf from here, yeah, from the place where I originally created, and put it inside the project folder uh, of my project. Okay. So now if I were to open this, this is the one where it's linked to this. So if I were to open this and have a look at the table, all right, just look at the table, and I right click on this and say show table data, it should list the list of rows, records that I had created earlier. All right. So the idea is in the form is that what if I click the list all recipes button, then in the recipe list box it will show the names of all the recipes that are in this recipe table. All right, and then as I click into each recipe, if you like, then the labels will get updated with the details of each recipe. Okay. All right. So the first thing we need to do is to obviously, now that I've added this into my project, what I need to do now is to actually create some connection to the database programmatically. So I'm going to do that inside the form load event. So if I double click on the form, I should get into the form load. Yeah, that's the load the form load event. All right, so first thing I need to do is I need to copy a few. I can create a few variables that are under the public class. All right, so I'm adding 3 things here. Now notice it's all squiggly lines because Visual Studio doesn't understand what these are. So you need to import the appropriate um, files or library, data.sql client. All right, so once you import that in, then no more errors here. Okay, so now we need to actually create a connection string. A connection string is a string that identifies the particular database file that we're trying to connect to. So I'm going to copy it from here. I'm just going to paste it. So if you notice here, so I created a variable called constr, all right, and it has this seemingly very long string. Don't worry too much about exactly what it means, but the key thing is if you had placed the database like this, like I've shown you just now, then whatever is here will be correct. Yeah, it'll just work. So you have a data source there that points to an MS SQL local DB, and then there's a field called attached DB file name, where it's just the vertical bar data directory vertical bar nutrition.mdf. So that's the name of the this is the name of the database. This part simply points to where the project has placed the database file in. All right, and then the rest, integrated security equals true. It's just something that came default for this. So if you want to really look at what what the connection string is, you can actually go back to here. If you click on this, and then you look at the properties section, you'll notice something called a connection string. So if I'm just putting my mouse over it, and you'll see this very long string here. And basically everything looks the same, except for the file path thing. So you don't have to type that very long file path. You just put it as vertical bar data directory vertical bar. That will do the trick. All right, so that's the connection string. Next, you actually use the SQL connection class to actually create a connection, and finally, you actually open a connection to the database. So at this point, when the form loads, if the database file is present and it can be opened, then there shouldn't be any problems. All right? Okay. So that will open the connection. Similarly, you want to close the connection after you're done. So when the form is closed, you want to close the connection to the database. So So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to click on the, you see at the top there, or another way, I could click on the form and then click on this lightning bolt looking thing and look for close, something like Windows close. Um, where it is, hang on. No, still color change. Close padding. Form closing. Okay, form closing. So I'm going to put it inside form closing. I'll double click here and I'll get to this part here. And then I'll just say sqlcon.close. So that will close the database connection. So now we have a form load that opens the connection to the database and a form closing that closes the connection to that database. All right? All right, so now we're done with that part. All right, so next thing I want to do is, so now that I have an open connection to it, so next thing is when I click this button, this list all recipes button, then I want to issue an SQL statement to the database, get the results, and then populate the list box with the results. So here we go. So I'm double clicking on this. So now I get a list all button event handler, click event handler. All right. So what I want to do is to create an SQL command and then create an adapter to it using SQL data adapter. Create a new data set. Fill it with the data from the database file, and then I'll check whether if there's data in that database. If there is, then I populate the list box. If there isn't, then I just put up a message saying there's nothing to put. All right, so let me paste the code for that. So let me show you guys. Okay, let me make it. I'll make it a little bit smaller so that you can actually see a little bit more code. So, all right. So now I have the. So first thing I do is I create an SQL command. All right. This variable here is something that was declared at top. Yeah. Just below the class definition, which means that these three variables will be available throughout all the methods that are inside this class, this recipe form class. All right. So this is my SQL statement. So I'm just saying select name, calories from recipe, order by name. So I'm actually ordering it by name. SQLCon is the connection that was established earlier in the form load. All right. So next, then I connect to an SQL data adapter with that command. And then I create a data set. I fill that data set and give it a name. This is a name that I've given to that data set. So fill that data set with the data that comes from this SQL statement. All right. And then create a data table from the data set. And then I check whether if the data set has any rows in it. So if there are no rows in that data set, then I put up a message box saying no recipe found. So I'm just using message box for that. Otherwise, so since there are data in it, so first thing I do is I clear the recipe list box so that it's empty, and then I go through each data row in the dt.rows. That's the data table rows. And as I pick up one at a time, I show the name and I show the calories into the list box. All right. Okay. So now let me just run it just to show you guys that it should work. All right. So this is the form. So if I were to list all recipes. Okay. So I think my antivirus is processing it at the moment. So let me just skip that. All right. Okay. So here's the program. So if I click list all recipes, oh, I get an error. All right. Okay, so I As you can see here, it says invalid column name calories. I don't have a field called calories, so I need to fix this first. My field is called, let me just stop that. My field is called just calorie or energy. I don't need this. Let me close that. So it's not called calories, it's called energy. All right, energy. Okay. Again, I can look at the table. See, I have a field called energy, not calorie. So, right, name, energy, recipe, order by name. I think that's fine. All right. So the other thing I need to change is this. It's not calories. It's energy. All right. All right. So I'm gonna run it again. All right. So here it is. So I click on this button, and there you go. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how many data I have. So if I were to look at the data table, I see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, since this is directly from, now if you notice, this view here is of the copy that is copied from my original folder. But the one that is running here, is actually running from another copy that is copied into the bin debug directory. So let me just show you that. Okay, so first I think I need to figure out where my repository is at. A repository should be... One moment, please. All right, source. Okay, repos. Okay. All right, so I have it in here. So this is where my repository is at. So this is my project folder. So now if I go inside, I will see the database file. So this is the database file. This database file is the one that is referred to here. So the one that is under the project file refers to this file that sits under the project folder. All right. Now, the database file that I'm running right now, the one that I'm running right now, that means this one here, actually doesn't come from here. It actually comes from, if I were to go to bin, debug, there, it comes from here. So my bin debug now has a copy of the database file that came from the project folder, this one.